And he said that the Ferrari factory routinely hires the assassins in the Black Hand to dispatch with troublemakers such as myself. Ferrari is the most famous, but also the most infamous car manufacturer in the world. The infamy comes from a variety of decisions made by Enzo and some other people over the last 7 decades. For me, a lot of that infamy comes from the discrepancies between Ferrari's claim of production totals for limited edition cars and the existence of excessive amounts of limited edition cars. Not a few over, not some post-production prototypes. I'm talking about considerably more cars than they claimed they made. Now, that doesn't apparently seem to affect the values of the cars, which is great, makes me happy until the day I can afford one, then I'll bitch about it. But until then, one of the biggest ironies in the Ferrari world is that Ferrari is not so secretly screwing the top 1,000 people in their client list. They tell them, hey, you buy this limited edition car, it costs this much, we're gonna make this many, and that's it for the whole world. And then Ferrari ends up selling a lot more. They make and sell a lot more than they claim they made, than they told these 1,000 people they would make. And no one seems to care because the cars still retain their value. And Enzo is still worth 4 or 5 times its sticker. So even though there are more Enzos than Ferrari claimed they made, the current and past and I guess future owners of those cars don't even care. But right at the beginning of when I started collecting VINs nearly 20 years ago, the Enzo was, initially it was my sole focus. That's all I wanted to focus on. And so I focused just on that in the beginning, and I learned some surprising things. The first thing I learned was this was the first car, the first Enzo that opened my eyes to production discrepancies. Serial number 133019 is the car I believe that was once owned by Dar Jamail. I wrote an article about it in the Ferrari Market Letter about how soon after he had acquired it, it had been crashed. The side of the car, I believe it was his son driving, side of the car swung out and hit a tree. The car burst into flames and burned to the ground. I bought a piece of the brake caliper on eBay, and that was it. And when I published this article, he had left a message at the Ferrari Market Letter office, and he was like, hey, I just read your article, it's great, but I had to go out to my garage and check to make sure, and my car is still there. So for the next hour, before I called him back, I was shitting a brick, because I thought, I'm gonna call this guy back, he's gonna sue me into oblivion for writing this article. I call him back, we have a 45-minute conversation. He is the nicest, down-to-earth guy I can imagine, and we have a 45-minute conversation about his car, about what happened to it, about him getting another one. In that conversation, I was like, wait, you asked them, you paid them for a second car, to make you a second car because the first one was destroyed, and they gave you a second car and it has the same VIN? He was like, yeah. It didn't even register to him. And a huge light bulb went off in my head. And that's when I started to look at other Enzos that had been identified as being totaled. Within a year after that Jamail car, I found a half a dozen Enzos that had been totaled, like not repairable, total. And they were all of a sudden back to life, driving around. There was Stefano Sidoli's car in Italy. His car was wrecked beyond recognition. It was in pieces, strewn about the road for hundreds of yards. And now that car is back to life. It's driving around. It's like the accident never happened. Initially, Luca di Montezemolo announced to the world that the Enzo was coming. We hadn't seen pictures yet. He said only 349 would be made, one less than we know we can sell, which was his exact same quote when the F50 debuted. We'll make 349, one less than we know we can sell. He said the same thing with the Enzo. When pictures debuted, demand was so strong. It was such a captivating, incredible car that Luca di Montezemolo said, okay, we will ramp up production by 50 more units. So he went from 349 to 399 on the Enzo. They eventually made an Enzo for the Pope, who said, please auction it off and donate the money to the victims of the Pacific tsunami. And that's what was done with that car. So Ferrari officially admits to producing 400 Enzos total. I have so far 500 Enzo VINs, and I have it on imputrescible authority that I'm missing at least 3 dozen more. I didn't know that Ferrari was building more than 399 at first. When I found out about the totaled cars that had been replaced with the same exact VIN, I thought, okay, that's unusual for a manufacturer to do today. It is not unusual for Ferrari. Ferrari did it in the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s, even the 80s. They did it all the time. A lot of shady tax-related decisions with regards to importing cars to America, returning them. They come from the factory back to America after being fixed, even though there's a brand new car. They've been doing this for decades. A lot of the Enzos that I had in my database for years, I mean, for literally years, more than a decade, some of them say probably an Enzo. And then that's it. Because somebody leaked the serial number to somebody who eventually, it trickled down to me. And then years later, somebody sees it. And they're like, okay, this definitely is an Enzo. I saw it here just yesterday, and this is the VIN, and blah, blah, blah. And so that information is confirmed, but there are still a few in there that say probably an Enzo. Maybe in Europe. Color unknown, full VIN unknown, just the serial number is known. I thought other people would be as interested in this information as I was because it's my database. I was fascinated by it. I thought other people would be as interested. Seldom did I, find that interest matched. And I was never concerned about anything happening to me because I was being vocal about true production numbers, especially with regards to Enzos. I guess the only time I had, even a warning, it was one of the many hundreds of days where I was on the internet, again, being vocal about true Enzo production numbers, and I received an email from Marcel Massini, and he told me about a sect of the mafia in Sicily called the Black Hand. And he said that the Ferrari factory routinely hires the assassins in the Black Hand to dispatch with troublemakers such as myself. And I guess that was supposed to scare me off from continuing to be so vocal about true Enzo production numbers so that when he lied to his clients about, hey, this car is, one of only whatever, that they would believe him. I don't really have anything invested in exclusivity. I remember the first time I drove a Porsche Boxster, I thought, holy shit, this is amazing. Everybody should have one of these. The fact that there are more Enzos than Ferrari claimed they made means nothing to me outside of my database. I enjoy the data, I enjoy putting in, I enjoy the discoveries with, all of the information that I cultivate over the years, but I don't want to own one any less because I find out that there are more than 400 made. There could be 1 million and I would still want all of them.
You asked for it, and Auto Tempest now has an app. So head over to your app store now, download it to your phone, and leave them a great review. So now, whether you go to autotempest.com by clicking the link in the description below, or just open up your phone app, you'll be getting access to all the results from all the major listing sites in one place. That is why we love Auto Tempest so much. We appreciate their support of VINwiki over the years, of Car Trek, but most of all because it is exactly where I go every day to find my next car.